Hello everybody, it's me, Fee, White Zulu, and I want to welcome you to another chapter of, another chapter of Okavango Diary, and I hope you're enjoying these readings. I want to welcome you all, and if you are enjoying them, please share or press the like button or whatever people do if they want to. I'm sorry, I'm a bit Diomaka today. I haven't got any words in front of me to read, so I'm doing this off the cuff. However, this is a greeting to you all and a welcome, and I hope that you enjoy these chapters that I'm reading out. They go out twice a week, Wednesdays and Saturdays, if all goes well. And enjoy them, and thank you so much for listening to them. Share them around. Thank you, and goodbye.
Sarrow Camp, 22nd of July. We only have 2 guests in at the moment. A very pleasant couple from Israel, and Fred had decided that he and I would go out on the game drive with them, while Mark had the afternoon off to rest, have an early supper, and go to bed. We went into the Moremi Game Reserve with Brown, one of our guides, driving out at 3 p.m, and went straight out to see the elephant carcass, as Fred wanted a photograph of all the birds and animals gorging on it. I've never seen anything like this at all. First of all, the stench was utterly disgusting, and then the big black African crows were pecking busily at it. There were huge vultures everywhere as well, white-backed, hooded, lappet-faced, and white-headed, all squabbling over the bounty. A whole lot were right inside this stinking thing, which resembled a rather horrible sort of marquee, covered in white bird splats. There were also lions feeding on the carcass, as well as the 2 types of jackal which I've mentioned before, black-backed and side-striped, also known as the silver jackal. However rancid or rotten the meat got, it was going to be consumed down to the last shred, leaving just the biggest bones, skull, and enormous tusks. Hyenas would appear at sunset to tuck in as well, crunching up the bones to reach the rich fatty marrow inside. This was the clean-up crew, ensuring nothing got left behind to cause diseases. After taking photos, we carried on, and Brown pointed out the silhouette of a lioness lying on a termite mound in the distance. He drove off the road, and there, at the foot of this mound and lying in the shade of a rain tree, almost completely hidden in the matching long grass, was a pride of 10 lionesses and young males, not yet old enough to be showing their manes. The lions had the fullest bellies I've ever seen, and just lay there as we approached. Their panting was loud in the silence while we took photos. One lioness was lying on her side with 4 cubs, approximately 10 weeks old, all suckling simultaneously. They were packed together in a row, side by side, and looked rather like little loaves of bread lined up, having just come out of the oven. We came to a big stretch of water just as the sun was setting, and watched a breeding herd of elephants drinking and playing in the water. There were about 80 cows and calves, some of the latter so young they were only weeks old and still learning how to manage their miniature trunks. They loved the shallow water, though, and went right in up to their necks, under the watchful eye of their elders. What is so lovely about the Okavango Delta is the purity of the water. It is crystal clear, filtered through reeds and desert sand, and so clean. The elephants didn't make much noise apart from loud splashing as they hosed themselves down with trunks full of water, and the occasional happy squeal from a calf. Then, at some hidden signal given by the matriarch, they melted away into the surrounding bush. Further along the drive, we saw a honey badger scurrying into the grass, busy on his evening pursuits. And as we advanced a few miles in that half light, between 5 and 6 p.m., 8 wild dogs ran out in front of the Land Rover so suddenly that Brown had to jam on the brakes. And as we came to a halt, they started to play around the vehicle, doing their greeting ceremonies, bouncing around excitedly as they were preparing to go on a hunt. They were squeaking, squealing, and whittling on the tires. They were so close that when I took a flash photo, their eyes lit up in reflection. This was the first time I'd seen wild dogs outside of captivity. Unfortunately, when I got back, the prints that I had taken of them, nothing had come out, although the other rubbish that I took in the office did. It was altogether an unforgettable afternoon and evening, and just another day at work for us. That night at dinner, Fred regaled us with another one of the legends of Tsaro. There was a very large broken tooth standing proudly on the bar, and I recognized it from its weight as belonging to a hippo. That was from Hamlet, explained Fred. Hamlet and Omelette were the 2 bull hippos that lived in the pod in the river at the bottom of the lawn. One night on the lawn, under spotlight and quite close to the bar, they had a monumental fight for dominance over a harem of females. They made such a noise and were pushing each other around so ferociously that I made the guests go and sit at the dining room table, away on the other side of the swimming pool for their own safety, just in case either of these 2 to 3 ton beasts got pushed right into the bar. Eventually, one of them ran away back to the river, and the next morning I found this tooth lying on the grass where it had broken off. He handed it to me, and I felt the weight of it in my hand and found it was extraordinarily heavy, with far more density than any elephant ivory. Tuesday, the 25th of July, Dad's birthday. Fred, who was always very resourceful, decided to take our 2 Israeli and now 2 Dutch guests out for a surprise evening braai in the bush. It was great fun, as they had no idea, till the guide drove them to what they thought was the lodge, and turned out to be a big open log fire with a table set with white tablecloth, napkins, flowers, candles, and sparkling wine glasses. We had hung paraffin lanterns in the trees around the clearing. Fred and I had gone over to the bush campsite at about 5 p.m. in the Hilux with all the braai equipment, drinks, food and ice, and set it all up. We also took one of the guides to help and stand guard nearby with a firearm slung over his shoulder to discourage any nocturnal predators from coming too close, attracted by the smell of grilled meat. After a lovely evening, when we left, we discovered 2 lionesses had been lying very close to the site we had chosen. That night, after we got home at about 10 p.m., I walked alone back to my cottage with my torch, and saw a bank of eyes. Hippos were out, 7 or 8 grazing just outside my front door. I sidled into my doorway with my back to the wall. A pair of lions kept roaring, and it appears that one of the brothers had got lucky and made the most of it by mating extremely noisily every 15 to 20 minutes all night in the long grass about 50 yards from my hut. Our morning had been enlivened by an Afrikaans couple arriving at the camp. They were in a Land Rover and towing a Fenta trailer with all their camping equipment in it, as they had driven up through the Moremi Game Reserve, starting from South Africa. They had just reached the Kwai River, which is the boundary of the reserve, a few miles away from us, and decided to camp there for the night. That night, a hyena had chewed a hole right through the side of the trailer, and then through the side of the big insulated plastic cool boxes, and eaten all their meat, eggs, and dairy supplies for the rest of their trip. We were the nearest lodge on the other side of the river, so they had rattled over the rickety pole bridge and come to see if there was any way we could help them plug the hole in their trailer until they could get to the next settlement to resupply. Fred found a steel plate from the workshop and helped them insert it between the huge chewed hole and the rest of their provisions. While Fred and the man were working on the trailer, I took his wife into the lodge and gave her coffee and cake, which the kitchen staff had made for the guests' afternoon tea. She looked longingly at the luxurious settings, the swimming pool, the dining room table overlooking the floodlit waterhole, the large comfy cane armchairs in the sitting area, and the big long bar. When I told her what it cost per night in South African currency, she gave a shriek of horror and said that their entire 2-week trip from Johannesburg, including fuel and game reserve tariffs, had cost about 1/10 of one night's stay at our lodge. Wednesday, 30th of July, early morning. Lion pack marks all around the camp, including right outside my door again. I was hanging upside down in the huge chest deep freeze, counting turkeys for our month-end stock take, when the radio calls. It's Pauline to say I must fly to Maun on Alpha Juliet Charlie at 2:30 that afternoon, so that I can get to the immigration department in Maun to sort out my resident and work permits, as nothing had been done since the day I'd flown into camp on the 3rd of July. Mad rush to pack for one night at that semi-built farm, then back to count stock. Just before lunch, I get another radio call to say pack everything, as you're going straight to Xuxana, the other camp, directly from Maun. Another mad rush to pack all my belongings. My month at Sarah was up. It had gone in a flash, and I was due to start my next shift of a month at Xuxana. Fred was to follow me a day or two later, when the couple who ran Sarah permanently arrived back, as they were coming overland. Jonathan took me to the airstrip at 2 p.m. 2 Italians consisting of a dad and one teenage kid who staggered off Alpha Juliet looking rather pallid. I jumped on board. The pilot is an Afrikaner called Andre. Already on the plane are 2 middle-aged Aussies. They say that the kid was sick in the back of the plane. The new and the pride of joy of Xuxana Air, as it has a retractable undercarriage. As he takes off, the pilot says, "We're stopping First at Kuganda to drop our Aussie guests, then on to Kakaba to pick up the managing director of another safari outfit and his wife Julie. The pilot also says AJC stands for All Julie's Cash, as it's her plane. She rents it out to other safari outfits when they're not using it themselves. I said, well, then we'd better clean up any sec before she gets in. We land at Kugana and I tell the Aussies I'll see them the next day. We check the plane carefully, but it turns out to be a false alarm. We fly from Kugana further into the Delta. The pilot, Andre, asked me if I can see any airstrip. He hadn't been there before and it's a new airstrip anyway. I said, wow, good time to be telling me this. Luckily, he has GPS, Global Positioning System. It bounces off satellite. Now I just have to go off script here and say, imagine having to explain what a GPS is, because at that time only small boats and aircraft carried them. Anyway, back to the story. The system bounces off the satellite, and we are in the right place. We see the strip and land. The runway is only just long enough and still to be finished. Andre says some very bad words, picks up his passengers, and we fly back to Maun. It's now 4:45 p.m. The MD and his wife breathe off, and the pilot asks, is anyone picking you up? I said, I don't know. And I wait and wait and wait at Maun Airport. Finally, a harassed Pauline rushes in a clapped-out little old bakkie. Rats have eaten through the ignition in her car again, and she can't hotwire it this time. She'd done that on the first occasion that she'd fetched me, but this time she'd had to borrow this bakkie from the coloured building crew. At the office, I snatched a moment to ring you, but got the daughter of one of our old nannies, Lisho, instead. She is Lokatia and has been with us on the farm for approximately 40 years. She told me that you were still at tennis and golf.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to my videos and my stories of my life. And I want to thank John Moslane for being what I call the sound engineer, but I'm sure there's a more professional word for it. However, faithful, and for 4 years now, I think, he has been here for me every Wednesday. Well, I think it's Wednesdays, but once a week to record 2 chapters of whichever book it is I'm reading. And without him, this couldn't be done. So a big thank you to John. Also, Sean van Vuren, we send the videos to him. Sorry, I'm not reading this, I'm just doing it off the cuff. And my brain is a bit Jumaka. And Sean uploads them to the YouTube channel where you can find them all in playlists. He does it beautifully, and I want to thank them both for all the help that they give me. Well, it's not help, they do everything for me, and it's a great asset. So also I have a website called whitezulubook.com, obviously www in front of it, but you'll find it there. Quite easy to find. Johnny Clegg's called The White Zulu. Mine's called White Zulu. And you will find on my website, you'll find all kinds of photographs going way back to when my ancestors settled in the Cape, 1652. Well, not photographs of them, but descriptions, this photograph of my grandmother's wedding, and lovely, lovely photos of the farm we still own. My sister sent me a photograph this morning of the farm in midsummer, and she says how beautiful it's looking. Had a lot of rain. So, just want to thank my helpers, John and Sean, to thank you all for listening, and also please share this with everybody else. Hit the like button and enjoy. Goodbye.